little bit after 10, so let's get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Federal Programs Open Forum that we're having here at TEDCO. My name is Stephen Allville. I'm the Executive Vice President at TEDCO, overseeing our programs. And I'd like to welcome all of you. Let me say a couple of words about TEDCO and then about the forum, and then we'll sort of kick it off formally. So if you're not familiar with TEDCO, we are an organization that's about 22 years old. We were created specifically to try to transfer technologies out of universities and federal labs into companies in the state of Maryland, and also to connect companies to the federal labs in the region. We also have a number of programs to provide support for entrepreneurs, helping the folks start the companies and grow them and to help them thrive. And finally, we have a number of different programs to provide investment into companies and other funding mechanisms to, again, foster growth and ultimately create jobs in the state of Maryland. So one of the things that we need to do in order to be useful and successful is to get the word out, right? To let entrepreneurs know what resources we have available at TEDCO. So we are holding forums like this to talk about our programs. The way this is going to work today, before I turn it over to Kim Mazingo, who will be running the program, is we will have a number of speakers on the panel present and through questions and share a lot of the information they have. I will be monitoring the chat and also the questions. So if anybody in the audience has any questions, feel free to put them in there, and I will either answer the questions or we will allow you to get up and ask your question yourself to the panel. Once the panel finishes speaking, we will have a Q&A period, so we'll be able to interact a little bit more. And I can, at that point, if you raise your hand and want to ask a question in person, I can give you the floor and let you ask that question. So hopefully that's sort of the ground rules. Again, I'll monitor the chat and the Q&A thing, so feel free to put questions in there and I can either feed them or we can have you ask them. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kim Mazingo. Kim is our new Director of Federal Programs at TEDCO, and I will let her take it from here. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Stephen. And I'm thrilled to be here, and I want to thank everyone that was able to join us this morning. We are going to record this, so we'll have it for later. But thank you for taking the time to spend with us and learn about federal programs and what we do to support businesses and economic growth in Maryland. So with that, to talk about that, some of the great resources we have in the state, I want to introduce Ron Casey, who is the outgoing Director of Federal Programs. Ron, you want to tell us about all the great things happening in Maryland?
Well, yes, focusing on the federal labs, depending on how you count it, there's anywhere from 75 to 90 federal labs in Maryland, which makes them very convenient and accessible for our companies. There's only 350 total in the federal government. But all of those actually are available through the TEDCO Federal Lab program. Be quite frank with you, we don't care where the federal labs is if it can help a Maryland company. So Maryland is the first in federal obligations for R&D. We got 20 military facilities, 60 federal civilian agencies, and 75 federal labs, twice as many as any other state. Budgets are typically in the billions of dollars for each of these facilities, and their R&D topics cover virtually every technology I can think of. Also, Maryland is first in the nation in federal obligations for R&D, running, this is an old number, but I think it's still relevant, about $18 billion a year. Technology available is available from these labs through patent licenses. The government develops technologies to meet their needs, but they don't want to build, warehouse, distribute, and so on. So they look for transferring this technology to the private sector to provide that role for them. They have unique facilities and equipment that simply isn't available anywhere else. but they're available through what is called a collaboration or a cooperative research and development agreement. There's actually user facilities that were designed with excess capacity beyond what the federal government needs so that private sector can take advantage of them. And that can be contracted to do work, even train your staff and allow commercial use of the facilities and equipment directly. An example of that is the nanofabrication facility at NIST. Then there's subject matter expertise that can come with any of those agreements. So you get a patent license and a CRADA that can afford you time with the subject matter experts that invented and work with that technology. There's also funding from the federal government, something near and dear to every entrepreneur's heart. The major one that we steer startup companies to is the Small Business Innovation Research and the Small Business Tech Transfer research programs. And those are provided as grants or contracts, contract agreements. And also that is provided by 11 different federal agencies to small businesses. And that is about $4 billion a year in the pot for that money. There are also new, rather new, somewhat new, tech challenges where the government will give a technical challenge and an award for whoever is the prize winner at solving that challenge. Now, some of the SBIR companies and technologies you may have heard of are companies like Symantec, Qualcomm, iRobot, 23andMe, Faraday Technology, United Silicon Carbide. Then you got Philips Sonicare's toothbrush and Abbott Medical Optics laser technology, all coming with starting their growth with SBIR funding from the federal government. And then, of course, the federal government can be a customer. I started out by saying that they build things to meet their needs, but don't want to become the supplier for that. So some of these agencies that ask you to develop something can also end up being a customer at the end of your development. And to simplify that, one of the barriers used to be I'll call it onerous federal acquisition regulations. But now there are other transaction authorities and simpler ways to do contracting with the federal government. And if anybody wants to challenge me, I think I could name a technology for every letter of the alphabet that the federal government works with. So, so I'll leave it with that. Kim, back to you.
Thank you for that, Ron. That helps set the stage nicely. So let me talk about federal programs and why TEDCO has a federal program at all. TEDCO is all about economic growth. We're about economic development. We're helping businesses to create good paying jobs in the state of Maryland. So when you put that lens on, that means everything that we're doing is to help grow businesses. And we know, as we just heard, there are a wealth of resources in the state that exist. They don't exist just to help businesses, but they certainly are a wonderful resource for business. So because we have this wealth of opportunity and this really high concentration of federal labs in the state of Maryland, where so much cutting edge research goes on, we have an excellent foundation to build and grow high-tech businesses that do offer good paying jobs. And those labs also offer expertise. They offer facilities. Ron was mentioning a few of the vehicles that they use to work with businesses. So we help to make that accessible. A very important part of what I do is build relationships, not just with businesses to get to learn what their needs are, but also with our lab partners to learn how we can help them meet their mission needs by connecting them with cutting edge businesses in the state that are doing really amazing and important research and development. So I engage with labs, I engage with businesses, and I manage programs that help businesses grow and make use of that public investment that we've made in science, technology, and innovation, and connect industry there. So as I mentioned, it's also equally important that I have developed relationships with our federal labs and connect them to other labs. Recently, I took a group of Navy partners up to visit RampMD to see the production facilities that the Army has available and the wealth of resources there, both for business and for other agencies to connect with. So one of the types of agreements that we have with a number of labs is a partnership intermediary agreement. That's kind of a special relationship that lays out how we're going to work with those labs, how we're going to bring businesses to them, because we know one of the chief problems that some of our labs are faced with is a lack of resources to connect with business, to find businesses. There's so many great businesses here in Maryland that can solve problems that these agencies face. Especially my background is with DoD in particular, so I understand what they do is mission driven. And they have needs that need to be met, and they can't possibly know all the businesses in the state. So TEDCO in general, and me in particular, serve as a great resource to help businesses connect and help them meet those needs. So what we have today is we have a couple of people that are going to provide examples of some of the work that we do. Some of our partners, we have a partnership intermediary agreement with Capital Tech Bridge, which is a Naval X initiative. It's an initiative that the Navy has to help them collaborate with each other, share information with each other, and help them connect with businesses as well. So we serve as a vector for them. We can help businesses get to them. We push out information. We bring businesses to them. And thanks to our first guest, Joe Teter, we also get to visit some of the amazing facilities. So our first guest is Joe Teter, and Joe is the Director of Technology Transfer for the Naval Surface Warfare Center at Carderock. And Joe is going to tell us about some of the things that Carderock has to offer. Thanks for being here, Joe.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. And thanks also to Ron and you, Kim, for a great introduction. I think I'm going to have to go back to the video report of this and then reread Ron's intro and use it in the future. But anyway, Carderock, again, one of the federal laboratories in Maryland, and actually in the Washington, DC, and Virginia, Maryland area, there's unbelievable amount of resources available to small businesses and even medium-sized and large businesses to help them grow, advance their products, or help the Navy solve some of its problems. And through the partnership and intermediary agreement, we're again engaged with TEDCO to further, find these little nuggets of gems and out there and see if we can introduce them to the Navy facilities, either through their new technology coming into the Navy, or they're using resources at our facilities. Here at Carderock, we're right next to the Beltway, right before you go into Virginia. And we have about over 2,000 people here now, scientists and engineers, and we work in about 47 different technology areas, some of which we are world leaders in, such as high temperature ceramics, environmental waste remediation processes. Basically, the Navy laboratories exist to provide what industry can't give the Navy or shouldn't be giving the Navy, and do some oversight and make sure technology is moving and the fleet is getting in better shape, and we have resources available for our warfighter. And as Ron mentioned, we execute cooperative research agreements, partnership and intermediary agreements, educational partnership agreements. We do work for private parties, and I'll explain a little bit of what we do in each of those quickly. For the cooperative research agreements, we currently have about 100 active, and these are agreements that span, again, both technology in and technology out. Currently, this week, we are doing installs down in Norfolk on our test ship to look at about 15 new technologies that are coming from businesses that are in the situational awareness realm. And we're taking them out to sea and giving these companies a free at-sea demo ability for their technology in front of major sponsors. And this is a part of a large program called ANTEX, which is Advanced Technology Demonstrator. There's a couple of these per year, and through, well, because Carter Rock has a test ship, we participate in a lot of them. And so these companies range from companies like Saab in Sweden to local companies that have, say, a new radar or a new sonar system. But they range really all over the spectrum. At Carter Rock, again, I mentioned we do ceramics, we do propulsor design, we do ship hull design, anything that's in the ship, the machinery, we help design, such as environmental waste products. We currently have a very interesting cooperative research agreement with actually a company that is producing a continuous processor for us, which we had never seen before. And so basically we purchased one of these units. They're the only one in existence right now. And we're working with the company to develop a Navy version. And that's all done under a cooperative research agreement. The partnership and intermediary agreements, as Kim mentioned, we have one with TEDCO, and we're very excited about that. It's for all of the laboratories in the Capitol Tech Bridge, and we're looking out to see how we can expand, how we can use other transaction authorities to do things like prize challenges. We did a prize challenge here at the laboratory a few years ago in conjunction with the Department of Energy, where we used our large tow tank facilities and seakeeping facilities to actually look at wave energy conversion devices. So like buoys or platforms you put in the sea that would use wave energy or motion of the water to essentially generate electricity. Department of Energy was very interested in this because at the time, these were not commercially viable. The technology just wasn't there yet. So we had a very stringent requirement that the prize would only be awarded if the company could demonstrate twice the efficiency of the current technology out there. And we were very happy, and this prize challenge was an incredible success because the company that won demonstrated 7.7 times efficiency of the technology. Now, this technology is commercially viable, and these kind of devices are now being further developed through the technology readiness levels for a full deployment as a new energy source. Educational partnership agreements. We work with a very large variety of schools in the area. We currently have 15 educational partnership agreements in the immediate area with universities and school districts to help with the STEM education in those entities. Work for private parties. We have about 10 of those active right now. There where a company, usually a larger company, needs tested engineering services from us, and they pay us for that privilege. And we generate about 10 million a year through work for private party. And again, our technologies are very wide, and we're very happy to talk with any company that's interested in either developing their technology by using our expertise in our facilities, or is interested in showing us new technology that we might be interested in acquiring at some future time. Over.
Thank you, Joe. I hope there's a lot to learn from everything that you've said. Some of the key pieces that I think businesses can think about is that labs do have excess capacity sometimes, so they do have the capability to work with businesses in a variety of ways. They have some really unique facilities to offer. Where else are you going to find a big ship to test your technology on, except going straight to the Navy and working with them? So that's part of what we do at TEDCO is connect business to those types of resources. But also Joe mentioned a lot of different types of agreements. And this is where we get to alphabet soup when we start talking about CRADAs and PIAs and PLAs and all these great tools that agencies are using to connect with businesses. So a CRADA is a cooperative research and development agreement. And that is literally you go in and you can work with the lab and you can get access to not just the facilities and equipment, but also to the expertise that they have to offer. So our agency scientists and engineers are just a phenomenal resource for business. But to help understand what some of these mechanisms are, and we've talked a little bit about prize challenges, that is something fairly new that agencies are offering, and there's a lot of complexity behind this. So I want to introduce our next guest, John Bittman. John is an interagency policy specialist in the Technology Partnerships Office at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So John is going to talk to us about some of that and how they help the federal labs. So thank you for being here, John.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Ron and Joe, for setting the table for me. I'd like to first give a little background and overview of NIST, where I come from. We are the nation's metrology institute, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And we've been tasked with the mission to promote U.S. innovation and industrial competitiveness by advancing measurement science, standards, and technology in ways that enhance economic security and improve our quality of life. Now, we do this through pretty much three main bodies. We have our laboratory programs that advance measurement science from the biggest measurements on the planet to some of the smallest. That includes our 1 million pound weight, where certain companies can calibrate their technologies with. And we, as it was mentioned earlier, we have the Nanoscale Science and Technology Center, or even the Center for Neutron Research, which is one of, I believe, 2 neutron sources in the US that's available for use by the public. And then we have our standards coordination programs that advance standards by supporting accurate and compatible measurements by researchers and industry around the world, by certifying and providing 1,300 standard reference materials with well-characterized composition or properties. And we also have a national voluntary laboratory accreditation program for those who are interested. And then we have our innovation and industry services. And we have a lot of manufacturing programs designed to help U.S. competitiveness that include the Hollings Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which has MEP centers in every state and Puerto Rico. We also have the Ball Ridge Performance Excellence Program and the Office of Advanced Manufacturing and their 14 or 15 Manufacturing USA institutes. And this is where my office, the Technology Partnerships Office, sits. And at TPO, as we like to use acronyms, we conduct our normal tech transfer operations on behalf of NIST researchers. But we also flex a few additional responsibilities regarding tech transfer. For one, we have some economists that collect the tech transfer metrics from across the government, and we collate them into a report that's sent to the Congress and the president. And we also chair a couple of interagency tech transfer bodies, like the National Science and Technology Council's Lab to Market Subcommittee, which is tasked with improving the efficiency at which the government moves our technologies from the laboratories to the market. We also convene a couple of interagency working groups, one on tech transfer and one on BIDOL, which is focused on extramural reporting compliance and on their commercialization activities. And we're also the host agency for the Federal Laboratory Consortium, or the FLC. So the FLC is a great resource for entrepreneurs, businesses, and tech for professionals alike. It's a quasi-governmental organization that's governed by an executive board made up of federal tech transfer representatives, but it was actually statutorily created to promote and strengthen technology transfer nationwide. This is accomplished by sharing best practices amongst the federal agencies, providing educational resources for tech transfer managers, and promoting opportunities and success stories of partnering with the federal labs for the public. And I highly recommend visiting the site to check out a couple of the resources available for the public, like FLC Business, which is meant to be a repository of federal labs and their facilities, along with the technologies available for licensing and or co-development. They also showcase or have a site called Lab Tech in Your Life. This is a fun interactive tool that showcases everyday products you may not know were originally developed in federal labs. And they also have a fantastic list of blogs on successes. And as an Army vet, I'd be remiss not to bring up my favorite blog of the Navy helping develop a dynamic diaper. But all jokes aside, it's an excellent resource for the public and tech transfer professionals alike. So we've already heard a number of different mechanisms that federal labs use to partner with industry. And you've heard the CRADA, Collaborative Research and Development Agreements. We've heard licensing and or co-development. We've heard educational partnership agreements and PIAs. But there are also other agency-specific partnerships, like the NSA has, and I believe the DOE too has open source software releases available to the public to help commercialize, which actually helps the agency back by having that crowdsourcing development of the software. That NASA has its own Space Act agreement, which they use with very flexibly. And then there are, even DOE has their own agreements for commercializing technology, or ACT. But the important thing to note is you don't need to know all these different mechanisms. You just need to know who to get in contact with, and they'll get you in the right lane. And that's the Tech Transfer Office. Or the FLC is a great place because they have that list of federal agencies that might be working in the space you're interested in. And licensing is all well important, but laboratories will also help you develop your own tech if you find researchers that are interested. And that brings me to the open innovation, which is not exactly your typical tech transfer mechanism, but we've heard it mentioned a couple times. And it's another way to work with our federal agencies. And the America Competes Act, or Reauthorization Act, was signed in 2011. And this actually gave broad authority to all the agencies to conduct their own prize competitions to spur innovation, solve tough problems, and advance their core missions. And these prize competitions come in a number of different flavors. They could be a point solution for a specific technical problem that, like we heard our example from Joe, but they can solicit ideas from the solver community, so to speak, which can bring in atypical disciplines to a certain field. Or they can recognize current work that's being done, such as the prize competition our community just ran to recognize inclusive innovation ecosystem builders around the country. And they can also have a number of phases, right? So your first phase can solicit ideas for a solution, and then they might have follow-on phases where technical demonstration of a prototypes happen. But one thing that makes these prize competitions really special is it expands the solver community beyond the usual suspects like your academic grantees or your government contractors. And it's gotten a lot of interest and will continue to as we move forward. And so for those that are interested in finding out more about the federal prize competitions, a great place to start is challenge.gov. This is a repository of all the government-run prize competition, both past and current. But a number of agencies also have their own sites. Like NASA has their COESI, or Center of Excellence for Collaborative Innovation, and the DOE has their own. I believe it's the American-Made Challenges.gov. And most of our prize competitions at NIST, I believe, get run through PSCR, which is our satellite campus in Boulder, and it's devoted towards public safety communications research. But please feel free to ask questions. I'm no expert on the prize competitions, but I can definitely get you hooked up with people who do. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Kim.
Thank you, John. That was fantastic. As John mentioned, there are a lot of acronyms. There's a lot to know, and that is exactly why federal programs exist within TEDCO, because we are a resource for helping to connect you with these tech transfer offices and with this body of information. So one of the things that TEDCO is doing is we're working on becoming a kind of not the one-stop shop, but a place that a business can go to get information on how to connect throughout the large Maryland innovation ecosystem. And we have a couple of programs that we're working on, building a new tool to help entrepreneurs do that. And that will be announced in the coming weeks and available. It'll be a place that you can go to find out what are some of the resources that can help your business grow. And certainly if you want to be able to connect with the federal labs, you're just not sure where to start, contact me. That's why I'm here. That's why federal programs exist. So, and with that, we talked a little bit about the partnerships that TEDCO has developed and the relationships we've developed with many of the labs. There are two programs that are running right now that I want to talk to you a little bit about. We have two guests to talk about their experience in those programs. So one of those is an intensive 5-month-long writing lab. It's a proposal writing lab. We focus on the National Science Foundation's SBIR, and SBIR is Small Business Innovative Research. This is funding that's available for businesses to help them grow their technology, help them grow their product offering. And we found that it's challenging to write a proposal the first time. It's challenging to write it the second, third, and fourth time as well, but it's much more challenging the first time. So we have an open competition, and we select businesses that we feel will benefit the most from this. And put them through with our expert partners at OST Global Solutions to run this proposal lab. So the companies in this lab will go through the entire 5 months. We connect them with experts in their technology area and experts in their market area who they want to sell to review those proposals. Now we do use specifically the National Science Foundation as an example, but we've had people write proposals for a variety of purposes. So one of the things I mentioned that we bring all this expertise to this proposal lab to help review draft proposals. That expertise comes from within TEDCO. So we collaborate outside of TEDCO, but we're very collaborative within TEDCO as well. We have a wealth of resources through our E3. Stephen, I don't remember what E3 stands for.
Entrepreneur and Ecosystem Empowerment.
Entrepreneur and Ecosystem Empowerment, thank you. And that program it also includes a network advisory services. So network advisors are people who have been vetted. They have a level of expertise in whatever their domain is. And I go to my partners inside TEDCO and say, I need some experts in these areas. And they send me a list of people, and I bring them to meet with the participants in the proposal lab. They review their proposals, they have one-on-one meetings, and they get all this incredibly valuable expertise. So we also are very collaborative with our internal investment team. I've had great working relationships with the Builder Fund. So we go back and forth and share information about companies that we're each working with. And a lot of our companies are benefiting from that. So to talk a little bit about not just the proposal lab, but also his experience working through TEDCO and taking advantage of some of the programs we have is Mustafa Al-Adami. He is the CEO of Aztec Diagnostics. So thank you so much for agreeing to join us today, Mustafa.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I think before I get into how much TEDCO has done for me, I kind of need to set the stage.
Yes.
So I was a refugee before I moved to the US. And when you're that part of the world, people talk about how advanced the technology in the US was and how like everything is fascinating. And so I moved to the US, and the first thing that happens to me, I get a fever, which was bad. So I go to the hospital and they start taking blood, and I was like, "What is that for?" And they said, "Oh, it's for a blood culture." So I looked at the nurse and I was like, "You use blood cultures too?" So long story short, yeah, apparently it's the same technology that is used in refugee camps and in US hospitals. And that's when I kind of decided to do something about it. And so I became a student at UMBC, and I did my PhD in mechanical engineering, but I still had that idea that I think I have the solution for this. And I joined this idea competition at UMBC, and I won, and someone said, "Hey, why don't you talk to TEDCO?" And I was like, "What is a TEDCO?" So long story short, I started talking with TEDCO, and I think it was Stephen and I think Jennifer back then as well. And I talked to them, and the first thing that we did was I needed to know what I had to do so my idea actually becomes a reality. So we did customer discovery through the DCI corridors at TEDCO, and then TEDCO provided me the first funding that this idea has ever received. And that was so important because that is how I secured the IP. And one of the reasons I decided to join you guys on the panel was to show off my plaque, because the plaque for that IP just arrived last week, which I think is awesome, right? And then, so after that stage, by then I had graduated from UMBC, and I decided to start a business and take that to market. And there comes TEDCO again, and they provided me with funding to form the business, and that was through the Maryland Innovation Initiative. And we didn't stop there. The cool thing is, every time I get stuck on anything, I just call up someone from TEDCO, and they provide the solution. So now that we have the prototype, well, we have to test it. So what do? I get in touch with Kim, and Kim introduced me to one of the people in her network, and we have a follow-up meeting next week, so we can see where we should place the prototype for this technology. And that brings us to the SBIR lab, which I'm a part of and I'm enjoying. So English is not my first language, and I have never written a grant before. And if you go to the SBIR website, you look at the solicitation, it's over 100 pages. And when a document is that long, you have to know that it's not enough, it's not long enough. So that's what I think the biggest benefit is. Like, we're going over that document, where all the application, the process, and everything that we need to know. And more importantly, for me at least, someone is reviewing what I'm writing to make sure it makes sense. The grammar sound, everything that is good. Also, TEDCO has been helping with the customer research through the databases that they have there. So all in all, if this idea comes to market, and if I become a billionaire eventually, someone is going to come back to TEDCO. Thank you.
Thank you, Mustafa. What would you say has been the most surprising thing that you've learned in the proposal lab so far?
I don't know about surprising, but the more questions you ask, the better your application will be. And the second thing is, you really have to answer all the questions directly. As scientists, we kind of like to go around and give details, and I think it's helping me think a little bit different. I think these are the two biggest things, and yeah.
I appreciate that. I think a lot of people hear about SBIRs and STTRs and think, well, I'm gonna apply for that without realizing how much work really goes into it. Were you surprised by the amount of time that it takes to prepare a good proposal?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's all these small things that have to fall in place. And it's, they say it's a 15-page document, but it really isn't. It's so much more than that. And like, yeah, but I'm learning a lot. And based on what Ron had told us, the national, the 15% of all applicants get the SBIR, but from the proposal lab, it's actually 47% of the participants in the past had received it, which I think is very promising.
Yes, yes, I'm glad you brought that up. We have had an amazing success rate, well above that national average of 16%. So yes, it's been very good for companies that have worked with us. So thank you to Ron for your diligence in setting this up, because it's clearly proven to be an incredibly important resource for a lot of businesses. 27 of you this time. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mustafa.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love TEDCO and everything you guys have been doing. Absolutely.
Thank you. So that's one of the things that we're doing now to try to help businesses grow, help them find success. We recognize how terribly challenging it is to get off the ground, to manage everything that goes on in life when you're trying to start a business. And we know that it is a complex process to put together a winning proposal. So we've pulled experts together to help businesses to increase their chances of success. And we've done that very well. So another program that we're running is actually a NIST program. So we do have a partnership with NIST. We also, I'll mention, have a memorandum of understanding with the Federal Lab Consortium. So we do partner with the Federal Lab Consortium. I see John put the link in the chat. There are a couple links in there. If you haven't been in the chat, you want to check those out. So that's an important relationship, and it helps us understand what the federal labs need. But this relationship we have with NIST has been going on for some time, and it's really put together a very specific but very special program to help NIST postdocs and other people that are ending their term of service with NIST to develop a technology that they've licensed from NIST. So this is called the NIST Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Program, or NSTEP. And we do support the departing employees, such as postdocs, and help them build companies. So we do that. This is a funded program. There's an application process, and the link to apply is on our website if you happen to be a postdoc at NIST. We're hoping to expand this, but more on that at another time. Right now, we've invited this morning our newest NSTEP company. Dr. Yangyang Zhao is the co-founder of Sensing Labs, and he is just getting started on his journey. That with NIST, TEDCO has been able to fund him for a year to develop his technology further, and to provide him with the opportunity to get business acumen, business training. Like most postdocs, his expertise is in a very deep technical area. That's where he spent his time, and that's incredibly valuable. Cannot start a business like his without that. But we also recognize that there's a need to surround him with the support that he needs to grow what will become a business that can employ other people in the state. So with that, Dr. Zhao, would you like to talk about your experience?
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, Kim. It's really been my honor to share my experiences with the NSTEP. So first, a little bit about myself. My name is Yangyang Zhao. I'm a co-founder for Sensing Labs Incorporation. So our business is doing sensing platforms and combined with AI technologies to detect biomarkers in human breast. So we use that information to monitor the health status for a lot of customers or patients. So this is a technology actually developed by me and licensed from NIST. So the reason is because we go through the next step, we got all these things. So back to 2019, that's the first time I heard from NSTEP. It was I guess it was a seminar host at NIST when people talk about NSTEP program. So it's open to the NIST researchers, not only researchers, scientists, research associates, postdocs. They are all qualified for this kind of program. So I learned this information. Then I talked to my boss, say, hey, there's a chance to commercialize our technology. I want to get a try. So he said, just go ahead. Then the first thing I'm going to do is I contact the TPO at NIST, so which is John's office. So I talked to them about this idea and talked to them about the IP I want to license. So and they get me connected with TEDCO. So I remember it was in the summer, Ron, Don, and me stayed in the cafeteria area. So they give me the like first lesson of training to think about as an entrepreneur. They explain the IP, different kinds of IPs on a piece of napkins for me. So that's where we get connected and started. So then we talked about all these details, go through the application process, which is very straightforward, and you can find all the useful information from the website. But if you have any questions, always like contact Kim or Ron, so you will get help. So some benefits I got from the NSTEP is like for different aspects. The first, like, got multiple resources to start up a company. So, like for NSTEP, there's a requirement for a NIST researcher, like you have to leave NIST to form a company. But it's like officially you lose the connection from NIST. It's not like that. So as like Kim and John mentioned before, there are different kinds of programs at NIST. So even you left NIST, you get a paycheck off from NIST, you form your company, but that doesn't mean like you lose the connection with NIST. You can, based on the NSTEP, you will first need to license an IP. NIST will be happy. Like I would say most time NIST will be happy to give you a free research license for the first year just to develop the R&D. And then if you success, you can negotiate with NIST for executive license after that. And then you're a researcher from NIST, you have the connections with the old groups. Most of the time, you can get a credit to develop this technology because you have the research team there. They are interested in this project. And by doing the R&D work, NIST gets further research done and you get some R&D work done for your company. So it's win-win credit. So I would say most NSTEP awardees will get a credit after that. So it's not just one program. Once you get NSTEP, you get the IP licensing from NIST, you most likely can also get a credit from NIST. So this is a huge help as a beginning of the startup companies, because like if we're doing technology, we need lab, we need resources. These all things we can get from NIST. So what I get from NIST is a credit from the my research group, which I worked before. So they allowed me to use the facilities there doing the testing of my device. And also they gave me the access to the NanoFab, which is CNST. So I believe CNST probably is the largest clean room in the East Coast or DC area. So they have all the fantastic facilities, all the stuffs to help you. So, and it's open to public as well. It's not just to NIST researchers. So if you need do some business with them, just contact them. That's all the resources I think about it, but I believe it's more than that. So the other thing I got help from NSTEP and TEDCO is the networking. So as King mentioned before, TEDCO provides all kinds of advisors from different areas. They are expertise, like have many, many years experiences in different areas. So once you need help, you contact TEDCO, they will find the exact advisor you need to help you. Then this is kind of education and also training process. and also expand your network. So through all these advisors, you know different people from different areas. And there are also local resources from TEDCO, like SBDC, like UMD Legal Resource Center. These are free resources to help you, give you some consultants when you start your business. The other thing is, which is the most thing I learned from the N-STEP, is the training part. So like the N-STEP is not just giving you a part of money to start up your business, but also they train you from a researcher to entrepreneur. Like the example I gave you before, the first time I met these people, we sit in the cafeteria, then they explain the IP matters to me. So that's a first training section I got from them. And then there are other things we can do is when I talk to them, the first thing they recommend is to get an IP. Then the next thing is to explore the market. So there are different programs. You can do NSF Corps, and I believe TEDCO also has its own database to help you. Like you can get free access from TEDCO. So this will help you to explore some potential markets. You just search the keywords, and then you get some reports about how big is the market, how's the growing rate. So these are the key informations you need to know, and to help you to figure out the market.
I'm glad
Then
you brought that up. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but that is an important resource. So so Yangyang is also in our proposal lab. So he's just working head down on doing all the right things to grow this business. And we do have Frost & Sullivan and Global Data market research available to companies that are in our proposal lab and companies that are in programs like NSTEP. So thank you so much for being here this morning and sharing your experience. I know we have questions and I want to make sure we leave time for that. And this is an opportunity for anyone to ask questions of any of us, any of our panelists or TEDCO. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so I want to again thank all of our panelists for speaking, and Kim for running the show. She did a great job. So first question that I have in the section is, and this is I think targeted to you, Joe, is what's the process for starting engagement sort of with federal labs outside of SBIRs or tech challenges?
Sure, I'll take that question. The first step is to contact the technology transfer officer at whatever institution that you think can help you. And for CRYROC, that would be me. And other methods that are commonly used, in fact, the most commonly used one is that you develop a relationship with one of the scientists or engineers at our laboratory, either through a conference or work somehow that you know that these people are in your space and working in the same technology area. And together you come up with a plan to further your technology and enter into some cooperative relationship, because all of the creatives require a principal investigator both at the laboratory and at the company. And that's really the core of the interaction is those two people getting together and figuring out what they want to do and how they want to go forward and get to the end goal. Over.
So one of the things I'll just address that briefly too is that, you know, TEDCO is a resource for helping you do that. We have other organizations that we work with that can help you prepare for engagement with the labs, prepare you for introduction, help you find the right lab. That's what we're here for. Thanks for that question.
Great. So Claudia left a long question in the chat, which I can try to read in a second. But let me offer the attendees, the participant attendees, if they want to ask a question in person, if they raise their hand, I can allow them to speak. So please do that if you're open to it. Before we get to the long question, Kim, can you talk a little bit about you talked about the SBIR program, the proposal lab. Can you talk about how often that runs or when we might do the next one and that sort of thing? How do people get involved with that if they're interested?
Yes, so thank you for that. The proposal lab runs once a year because it is a 5-month program, and it starts, I'm going to say the first workshop is in January of each year, but it really begins in December. The application process, we're hoping this year we'll be able to start a little bit earlier. This is a program that we're able to offer because of wonderful partners at the Small Business Administration. It's incredible that they've funded this, that Ron has worked with them, and now we have an opportunity to offer this for at least 2 more years. So we'll be putting information out. I would say, find me on LinkedIn, watch what I'm posting. I'll definitely have things there. Definitely follow TEDCO. We put a lot of information out on our LinkedIn. Our marketing team is great about that. And sign up for our newsletter. So our newsletter, before I joined TEDCO, I will tell you, it was one of my favorites. That has a wealth of information in there. We'll put some links in the chat so you can find those. Thanks for asking that, Stephen.
So I had Sai G. I'm going to click on allow to talk. And if you want to ask your question, unmute yourself. And
yes, thank you. So I was looking at, there was a FLC. I don't know if there's somebody here that can help on this. FLC has a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks on the tech transfer. Is that open to public, or is this for employees only, federal national lab employees only?
Happy to take that question, Sai. It is actually, because we're living in a virtual world right now, last year's and this year's national meeting for the FLC is free registration and it's open to anybody.
great, thank you. So let me try to tackle this question. It's a long one. So this is a general question for discussion, if appropriate. Oh, Claudia's raising her hand, so allow her to ask the question. That might be better.
I mean, I'm sure you'll do a great job reading this, but and I don't know if it's appropriate, and we only have a couple minutes left anyway. But we're a data solutions company, and we're doing some pretty innovative things in the area of data fabrics and data fusion. And we do have a couple of contracts, federal contracts in DoD. What I am noticing and what I'm finding is that the barrier to entry to actually do services or this type of work in the DoD and the more traditional acquisition strategies that the DoD has almost seems to be a little bit not in conflict, but just different than the innovative spirit of like Cyber and Creators and all of the discussion and awesomeness that's going on right here. And it just seems that it's hard. Like, for example, I give an example that the Army is doing, a whole revamping of their enterprise business services, and it's like COTS only, and usually requires like a really big system integrator from one of the big defense contractors. That seems to be like a barrier for smaller innovative companies to get in the game. So I was just wondering on the federal side what TEDCO can do to sort of level that playing field a little bit, not just early on in the R&D, but in the actual delivery of support services, if that makes sense.
Somebody want to take that one?
Ron put a good suggestion in the chat. Ron, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll try and wrestle this one a little bit. When there's a very broad application, the government, especially in IT these days, the government's going to have concerns about security, reliability implications, and everything, and continuation of government's viability to provide services and to meet their mission. So they will go towards proven technologies. For smaller businesses and startups, you're advised to find a niche and prove your technology and then grow from there. The other thing that I might mention is if there's an agency that you want to get connected with, contact the small business office at that agency and let them know your capabilities. When solicitations come up, they're discussed within the federal government, and they will talk about, how should this be a full and open solicitation? Should it be limited in some way? And if a small business is going to have a shot at it, typically the small business office has to demonstrate to the agency or the command that there are enough small businesses out there for competitive procurement. So the fact that the small business knows you, knows your competency and capability, they become your in-house champion for small business set-asides. I hope that helps.
Good, thank you, Ron.
I could add a little bit more to that. If they want.
Okay.
Yeah, here at Carter Rock, we're not an acquisition agency, but we do have an incredible, like 100+ people contracting office that works basically for our parent organization, the Naval Sea Systems Command. And there is a small business set aside, as is for all federal agencies. And we are very proud in the fact that we exceed our contracting to small businesses. And what Ron said about how you go about finding these opportunities, I think that's dead on. And but I do want to add that the federal government and the DoD is very much committed to supporting small businesses. Over.
Very good, thank you. So we are about at the end of the hour. I don't have any new questions in the chat. So I want to thank Kim and all of the panelists for their activity today, everything they had to share. I want to thank all the attendees for joining us. The federal labs can be intimidating to folks on the outside. So while they represent a great and vast resource for entrepreneurs, people may not be comfortable approaching them. They're behind the big gates and the security and that sort of thing. So TEDCO's role is to help you navigate those waters. So if you need help with that, Kim should be the first person to connect with. The other thing I want to leave you with is TEDCO's website, right? TEDCO.md. There you can get access to all of Kim's contact information, my information, and more information about the various programs that TEDCO has to offer, many of which you've heard a little bit about today, but there are many others and much more support. So with that, again, I want to thank you all for attending. And we appreciate everything you guys have contributed. So have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.